Okay, so let's start with Virginia. Were you born in Virginia? A lot of this I don't know.
Oh, really?
Kind of not really, no.
I was born in D.C., but I was living in that same house that I grew up in Arlington, Virginia.
At what point did you start playing music?
Well, I took piano lessons and quit when I was like 11 or 12 because I hated it and wasn't into it. And then I started sort of playing guitar with my brother, Christopher, and we had like a 2-string guitar that I was learning stuff on. When I decided I wanted to start playing music was after I saw David Nachmanoff. He now plays guitar with Al Stewart. I saw him playing with this band, Peter and the Noisemakers. Just thought it was the greatest thing ever. I was like, I want to do that. And so then I started playing in a band with his brothers, and we were called the Survivors, and we played covers. We did stuff like, Stones and Bowie and Jonathan Richmond and The Cars. I guess I was 15.
You're going to Woodlawn.
I'm going to Woodlawn.
Explain H.B. Woodlawn.
H.B. Woodlawn was an alternative public school of Arlington County. The students every week would meet for town meeting, and you could vote in classes and hire teachers. And
what do you mean you could hire teachers?
Say everybody wanted a film class. You go and vote saying we want a film class, and then you vote to what teacher you want to teach that class, and then you have that class. It was a great school, really. I mean, I hated high school when I was there, but in retrospect, it was like the easiest and best time of my life.
Were there lots of freaky musician types at school?
I wouldn't say lots, but there were some. I mean, the Nachmanoffs were a good example.
Explain the dances and the proms and shit.
Well, that was another thing. All the students had all the control over the dances and the proms. And so they started putting on punk rock shows at Woodlawn. DOA playing there, SOA, and Minor Threat played there. And, they would just bring in the cool punk rock bands. And I remember actually feeling like they're taking over our school.
The punks are taking
over our school, but really it was pretty cool. And then we also had like Trouble Funk play a prom and EU and all the go-go stuff. It was fucking killer.
It's kind of nuts. Like we interviewed Big Tony. Did I tell you that?
No.
Trouble Funk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I said like, oh yeah, my band opened for you guys at a prom at this place called H.B. Woodlawn. He's like, a word, like he didn't remember it at all. He had no recollection at all. Okay, so now, at what point did you start recording stuff? Because I met you when I was like 14 or whatever it was. So how did that start?
Okay, so after the Survivors, my first band, ended when I was about 16, I found this little Radio Shack mixer that was just 4 input knobs and a little output that was battery powered with a 9-volt battery. And I all of a sudden thought, hey, I could use this. I got my mom's little pocket cassette player, and I had my regular cassette player, and I would record a drum just like, here, I'll do. And then I went back and played on top of that, and I made a song. I did that. I figured it out in one day, and then recorded 2 songs. Wow, this is so cool. So that's when I started recording, and I just got more gear, and then I got a reel-to-reel, and then I think by the time I was 17, I got the 4-track. And I started the studio. My Age of Consent was the first band I recorded in there. And then you guys, Freak Baby. So you guys were really one of the first bands I recorded.
Didn't you do Pussy Galore or something like that?
Yeah, but that was a little bit later. That was after I moved out of my folks' house.
Oh, right.
That was at the Route 50 house.
So you were basically just recording you and friends and little dicks like us.
When I moved to Route 50 house is when I officially put an ad up in Commander Salamander or something like that. I made this record 4 songs, flat rate, $125 or something like that. It's 4-track. You think that'll take a day. Pussy Galore comes in and takes 4 days to do. So they got their money out of it. They're bringing in fucking huge steel drums and banging on metal and chainsaws and.
Describe the music scene back then in DC?
The music scene back then was pretty much Discord bands. I mean, they were the dominant. They had all the audience, I felt. I was too new wave for all that. 11th Hour, Churn, I don't know if you remember that band. You do.
I do, actually.
But yeah, no, Discord stuff was it, basically, at that era. And even Pussy Galore was an outcast. Like, they were like, the Discord people hated them.
What do you remember about DC being, like, kind of fucked up and dangerous?
I mean, I guess it was, but I never really felt that. I mean, we would go to 930 Club, you know, and I guess that was a bad part of town, but I didn't really notice it. I mean, there was a lot of crazy murders and stuff there, right? You remember it being, you know, when you're a teenager,
I remember being like a little freaked out running from 930 Club to DC Space.
Right. No,
like,
that was
everything
kind
in
of a bad
between
part
these
of
two
town.
clubs.
It's pretty
You're like
sketch.
17.
Yeah, totally.
You know. So you set up your studio in your bedroom, right? It was sort of, I remember there was a laundry room.
Yeah, at my parents' house, the control room was in the laundry room, and then there was my bedroom, which was where the bands played. I did the flat duo jazz there too. Dexter Gromweber, do you remember them?
No. I remember Flat
He
Duo
knows
Jazz.
them.
Okay, I'm a fucking idiot too. Guess what? Guess who else is an idiot? Me.
There would be no White Stripes without flat duo jazz.
Oh, good. Well, thank God for them. So you're like our local audio engineer
Right.
within this group of friends, but you're also in a band. So how did you imagine all of that to play out?
Well, I mean, I started recording so I could record myself. I mean, that's the only reason I was doing it, and I would get more gear, and like to help pay for the gear, I'd try to record other bands, even though I was giving a lot of freebies away then. But, you know, I did it because I wanted to record myself and my bands. But then it became just, you know.
Try to explain to everybody the Arlington scene. Like the little reunion we just had.
You mean
like,
our scene?
Our scene. Try to explain our scene to everyone.
I don't know if I could. Really close-knit, and we just had a great time all the time. We were this open door policy. You can walk in anytime you want, hang out. Hey, what's up?
I just thought it was so cool that in every house there was a jam space.
Yeah.
Like there was this house on Route 50 and this fucking house was there was just jam space. And then the other, like everybody's house had instruments in it.
Yeah.
And everybody, I don't know if it was the Woodlawn thing or what it was, that nobody was going to become a lawyer. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't
A lot of teachers.
Yeah, but I didn't feel like there was any pressure to be anything but cool, you know.
That's true. I know that Route 50 house, I mean, for a studio, the studio was the living room, and there was a little closet that was the control room, and there was 5 people living in that house. It was pretty crazy. And then you guys started playing there.
Well, I mean, come on.
Dane Ramage.
So, okay, we can kind of jump forward a little bit to. Okay. Do you remember me joining Nirvana? I don't remember how I told you.
Well, I remember you called me up from LA. It was like Skeeter left again. And, you know, we had played as Churn a few times and had been recording some. And I was like, great, come back and let's do Churn. And you were like, well, there's this band in Seattle that wants to try me out, and I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna fucking blow them away and join the band. And of course, that's what you did.
Okay, now what I'm remembering is before you moved out here, that was awesome, is that Barrett and I had this really kick-ass correspondence with
Pixel Vision.
And we would send each other Pixel Vision cassettes because Kurt had a Pixel Vision. How many times do we do it?
I don't know. Just maybe
do you have
once
those
or
anymore?
twice. I can't find that one you sent me.
Fuck.
Hi. It's really early in the morning. I think it's about 8:30 or something, or 9, and I haven't been asleep yet. And I thought that I would make this tape for you and send it off eventually, probably tomorrow. It's a Sunday morning. And this is Olympia. This is my Olympia tape. This is where I live. This is my house. See? But you gotta kind of go, like, see that van? That's our van. You gotta kind of go through the side of it. Pretty cool, huh? So anyway, it's really freezing outside. It's really cold. And I'm walking to get cigarettes right now. I'm walking over to the A.M. P.M., which is kind of a West Coast 7-Eleven deal. They might have them on the East Coast, I'm not sure.
You sent me one from Olympia,
Yeah.
and you were really just like, I hate this place. So.
It sucked.
And that's when you were like, you got to move out here. You got to move out here. And,
Yeah.
that was the winter. When was the record? Was that before
It was
the record?
Spring. Yeah, because we went down there in the spring. But what did you remember? Okay, so what do you remember about going to Sound City? Why were you in Los Angeles? I don't remember.
I went out there because you were recording records.
Oh, there you go.
You said, come out, we're making a record in Sound City. And I hung out there for a week. I remember, is that when you got the motorcycle?
Yes.
'Cause I remember riding the motorcycle around. I remember the Oakwoods where you guys were staying and you were kind of trashing it. And I remember, being in Sound City, it was like, oh my God, look at all these records that were made here. They're so cool. And I remember things seemed really slow in the studio because I'm used to making a record in a day. And Kurt goes in there and does one guitar track in an afternoon and then maybe sings a song. And that's it. That's the whole day. It's like, wow, really? But I also remember just like being so floored by how good it sounded. Just so good. I also remember giving Kurt the idea for Stay Away, because he was saying pay to play.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was a moment where everybody was trying to, what can we say besides pay to play? And I said, stay away.
Really?
And you don't remember when I
You should call Courtney for that fucking publishing.
you don't remember when I bet Kurt that you guys would be on the cover of Rolling Stone by the end of the year?
No. You did? How much did you bet?
No, there was no bet. There was like, I was just like, I'll bet you that you'll be on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Well, you were wrong. It didn't happen until 92.
Well,
Yes! Facial! Kidding. So then. What did you think of Seattle when you first came here? What happened first? Did we get that? You got the house while I was on the road?
okay, so
I don't really even remember.
I got here, we drove in July 1st of 91. And I had just driven straight from LA, I think, 24 hours straight. And sleeping in our van in front of Chris's house in Tacoma for a month while I drove up every day looking for a house.
Where the fuck was I? What was I doing?
You guys, I don't know where you were. You were still living in Olympia, I think. Yeah, you were still living in Olympia. And then I finally found that house in West Seattle, and then you moved up and moved in with us.
Weird. I hardly remember that. Talk about recording in Arlington. Now, what I remember about recording by myself at your place, there was one day where at first I did one really quick little experiment. I don't know if you remember that. It was like a 1.5 minute long instrumental, I think.
Really?
I think so. Unless it was the Gods Look Down
It was
thing.
God's Look Down. I'm
Was
pretty
it?
sure that was the first thing you did. I mean, I remember like, you were like, I've got a song. Let me play. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, you motherfucker, that's so good.
So, when I would come record with you, I was recording stuff. I was playing drums on your stuff,
Yeah.
but I just remember begging for like extra tape. I don't know how much stuff did I do. I don't even remember.
There's like 40 songs
Wow.
of 40 various things. I mean, some of it's just fucking around, you know, the hooker song, which is still awesome. Do you remember that one?
No.
Come on.
Is it the
James
Ian
Brown?
one?
Yeah. But there's a ton. And a lot of it, most of it's like on the churn reels or whatever stuff I was doing until we moved here. And then I think, you know, when you finally had some money, you would buy some tape.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those sessions in your basement. Like,
The Nirvana sessions.
no, not the Nirvana sessions. Let's go back to Arlington for
Okay.
1 second and talk about the two of us recording together and me recording by myself. Like, because to me, it seemed like I knew that we were doing stuff that people would hear, but I thought that we were doing stuff that only kind of a certain amount of people would hear. You know, it was hard to imagine anything going beyond, you know, the fucking DC space or whatever. So, to kind of describe the basement and that time that we were there in Arlington.
That was the Upland house, right? That was Upland. Another rental house where I converted the basement into it. I actually had to build out an unfinished part for the control room. I'm trying to remember, I recorded a bunch of Discord stuff.
I mean, what did you imagine? What the hell at that point did you imagine that you were going to do with the rest of your life?
I was always just like, I want to play music. I just want to be in the music world. So I don't think ahead that far. I was just trying to, I want to make records. I want to play music. That's what I was doing.
Barrett was kind of the ultimate batch too, because you were a bartender and you had a motorcycle and a studio and a band. That's like the biggest magnet I've ever heard of in my entire fucking life. Anyway, so then we get out to Seattle. So we had the house on 38th Street. Was that the first one?
Yeah.
Right. We set up the studio in the basement. So I know that I would come back from tours and I would like write songs while I was on tour and come back and record them in the basement. Do you remember any of that stuff?
Yeah, totally. And that studio, I mean, that wasn't really set up. That house was just a teeny little, there was no separation between where I had the tape machine and the little teeny room where the drum kit was. That was sort of a stopgap. That was just like, I remember my dad sent all the equipment on a pallet wrapped in plastic. I don't know if you saw that. And so I started touring with Nirvana in the end of '91 for that first tour, the West Coast tour. So it's probably, around then is when I got set up, because I don't think that stuff was set up until after then. Yeah, you had a bunch of songs that you always had a bunch of songs that let's record. I'm trying to remember what was from that era. Marigold was done in DC.
That was done in DC, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you remember about touring with Nirvana?
I remember that it was a lot of fun, and it got crazier and crazier and more separate. At first I was working for my friend Dave, and then I never saw you, and then I fucking had to deal with fucking Alex, who hated my guts. I don't know why.
He hated everybody. He was an asshole.
And it just got kind of not as much fun after a while. But it was so, that Australian tour was so much fun with, I don't know, It was fun.
What do you remember about Japan? Because Japan to me was like, it was so weird that we were playing these tiny clubs.
I know.
And they hadn't really like ever stage dived or something?
No, and they were so polite. And do you remember how they used to partition off the audience space, like so nobody could move around? And they were not very, compared to all the other Nirvana shows, they were not very boisterous. And I just remember the president from Tama coming that one night, and after smashing and stuff, he was like, "Oh my God, Dave doesn't like my drums." That was the night Chris did the fire extinguisher, and it was just like he couldn't breathe. It was one of those. You don't remember that?
I do remember that actually. Yeah.
Udo, the Japanese promoter, he was awesome, telling us stories about Paul McCartney. And I remember the Kobe beef on the rock.
Oh yeah.
That was so good.
So at the time, like, you know, growing up the way we did, playing the music that we did, with Nirvana becoming popular, like, what did you think was happening to music?
Well, I remember being totally psyched that all the hair bands were getting just finished. They were done because of you guys, and it was like, finally, that's good. Some good music finally getting through. But it's weird because after that, it just became, you know, like Creed, and I mean, it just started becoming copies of what was happened during that 3-year period or something like that. And I have to say, major labels are evil entities. I don't like them.
So we got here just before things kind of went bananas.
Yeah.
And in the next, how did you see the city change? How did you see Seattle go from what it was when we first moved here to what it's, you know?
It was a very friendly scene when we first got here. I mean, everybody hung out together. I was working at Rock Candy, barely making any money, and just people were, everybody knew each other. Everybody was friends. Everybody was hanging out. There wasn't really any weirdness. I mean, it's funny how the press made everything out to be like so much different, and you know how press is. They want to make a story, so they're making it all out to be different. I think it didn't change that much, though, after that. I mean, it's always been a pretty close-knit group here. Seattle's a cool place, so.
What were your first impressions when you got here?
I liked it. I don't know. I thought it was a cool city. There seemed to be a lot of music. It's definitely different than D.C., which I was kind of, you know, prepared for, and I wanted to have something different. I just remember being pissed that I got paid half of what I got paid at 930 Club for doing this more of a job. $50 a night as opposed to $100 a night for running sound for 3 bands. And
Why was that? I wonder why that was.
I don't know. That's just what the going rate was.
So let's talk about Kurt. What did you think of Kurt?
I thought Kurt was the sweetest, nicest, coolest guy ever. I mean, he was just so funny, his dry humor, and he just had this little wicked streak about him. But it was just, I don't know, he was so cool. I remember one night in Tacoma, we went to like that drag queen bar, and he had his push button Valiant, and he was just so sweet. He was like, he was saying, I really think it's so cool that you moved out here and we can record with you. And, you know, I don't know, he's just such a nice guy.
What do you remember about recording us?
That was a quick, down and dirty session. I mean, you guys came in and I think you made up one of those songs on the spot, right?
I think so.
It's fairly easy. I mean, it was as I said, there was no separation between where I was recording and where you were playing, so I couldn't really hear anything. I was hoping it sounded all right, and then we did a quick mix. It was like 2 days session, I guess, so, or something. It was fun.
Didn't we do something in the other studio too? The one in the
There
center?
must be. You did some demos. That's where that Francis Farmer demo came from, but I don't remember that for some reason. I remember you and Chris helping me, like, put insulation in when I first got that place.
Right.
And I remembered I did Kurt there making feedback for that William Burroughs thing. That session was funny. I mean, he was there for like an hour. He just started making guitar noises, and I ran the DAT machine.
That was it?
That was it. Yeah, that was the whole session.
Producer. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where were you living when Kurt died?
I was living in that studio in Lower Green End. Yeah, it was
I'm trying to think that you hadn't been on the road with us for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I quit right before the second Saturday Night Live thing, which was, yeah, it had been like 8 months, I think.
Right. What did you think of our world changing the way it did?
Well, it just wasn't, for me it wasn't fun anymore because it was just dealing with the management, and it just gotten so big and crazy, and the vibes just wasn't as fun anymore. I don't know. I remember talking to you after Rome and stuff like that, and I can't remember how I heard. I think some friend called me one morning or something. It was sad. But I remember not being really surprised.
Yeah. I kind of don't really remember a lot of that summer.
No.
I do, sort of. I got fucking married.
I know.
And I didn't really know what to do musically, but you and I had recorded, I think, I'll Stick Around and Big Me, didn't we? At your studio in the Seattle Center.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
And there was that one guy, I think his name was Damien. He had a local music show.
Damon.
Damon.
I played that. I played I'll Stick Around on there, which didn't have a name yet. It's funny because I actually just posted that show.
And you were on the show. Was he doing, I don't remember, what was that?
He was, it was an interview because I was also just starting my label that lasted about a minute. And so I went on there playing a bunch of old stuff and then some new stuff. So I had your new stuff. I had Presidents that I had just recorded. I had some Churn stuff, so it's other band. I played Hooker, that song Hooker on there. So it was just like his 2 hour show. I sat in and talked about what I had been doing and stuff like that.
What's his name?
Damon Stewart. He was on KISW.
I remember after we recorded I'll Stick Around and we mixed it and I listened back to it, I actually kind of had a panic attack.
Like, this is good.
Because I thought that it sounded like it was the best thing that I had ever done. And I really thought like that I could, if I wanted to, I could do that. I don't know why it freaked me out, but I really honestly felt kind of scared.
That's so weird. I always knew you could.
I know, but I never like I could. It wasn't a matter of like playing. I didn't have a problem with the playing part. It was like the
Right.
writing part, and that
Right.
was the first time I'd ever written something I felt was like fully formed and
Right.
actually.
Well, we had already done, even before that, they had like Weenie Beanie, and I think Exhausted came after that. But I mean, that whole record had been demoed out already. I think with the exception of 2 songs, right?
Yeah. Okay, so what? Oh, wait till the truck goes by. What were your first impressions of Robert Lang's studio?
I thought it was the coolest place ever. I love that place. And the drums sound so good in that room. I just love it. It's like, for me, that was like, I can get a Bonham sound in here. I can get a sound that sounds like Bonham records, old Zeppelin records.
But that room is, everything about it is acoustically wrong.
Yeah, probably.
Have you been to any studios that have marble and stone all over the place?
Nope.
Why the fuck do you think he did that?
I don't know.
What are the advantages of that?
I don't know. It's like playing in a reverb chamber, I guess. It's pretty crazy. I don't know, but I love the way, and the little rooms to the side that are just 30 feet high, and
Super tall ceilings and marble everywhere.
I know. And then he has the super dry rooms for the vocals. I don't know. That studio was cool, and that fucking massive door. Is that door still there?
It's still there, but you're not really supposed to go in through the studio that way because now that's a bathroom.
What?
It's a bathroom with a fucking microwave in it. So on the wall, on the door, there are these shelves. You would never really know it was a door. It's almost like a trap secret door now. There's a bathroom.
Where do you go in then? Oh, the other side.
Wait till you see it. You're gonna fucking freak out. There's doors everywhere. There's stairs that go to like a door, but I'm afraid to open some doors because there might not be anything on the other side. It's fucking crazy. Did you come there when we did any of the Nirvana stuff there? I don't remember because we were there for like a weekend.
I don't think so.
Okay, so had you been there before we did stuff there?
Before Nirvana?
No, before the Foo Fighters. Before I recorded.
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe, I think so, but maybe not. Maybe not.
I mean, I only picked it because it was close to my fucking
Right,
house. you
right.
know? Studio X was the place.
Right.
Man, you know? But
God, maybe not.
what were some other studios in town? I mean, it was funny because I only remember a few studios in Seattle.
Yeah, there was like Music Source, which I'd never went to. There's London Bridge, which was, I think, exclusively Rick Parasher's place or whatever. But I hadn't really been in any of them. I was still 8-track at my place. So I think the first 24-track studio I'd ever been in was that place in Baltimore that Jay Robbins now owns. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a pretty nice place. I did Thud. I recorded Thud there.
So, talk about the 6 days that we were there at Robert Lang's.
5 days.
Sorry.
Well, and it was like you wanted to set it up as how we had done all our demos, which is everything's ready to record. You just go to your drum set, play the drums, come in, play a bass, play a couple guitars, and then move on. And then save the last day for vocals. And we were, we got on a pace of about a song an hour at one point. It's like once we got all the sounds going, you just went boom, boom, boom. Because you already had all the songs demoed out. You knew exactly what. This was always your greatest talent, that there was never any question of how something should be done. You knew exactly, you solidified your part right away. Like my problem with recording is I'm always like, oh, maybe it could go this way, or maybe I should play it this way, or, and it just makes you take forever and you can't make any decisions. So it was amazing how.
Well, in a
quickly
way,
you were good.
that was out of necessity because the first time, like the first recordings that I had ever made by myself was, I almost felt like I was imposing by using your tape and your machines and stuff.
Well,
so I sort of figured like, if I get this fucking done quick,
Right.
then, he'll still get me high or whatever.
You know, and I guess there's a little bit of truth to that. It's like, come on, if I'm gonna give, I'm doing a favor for you, right?
Now, sonically, how did you think that record sounded? How did that room sound?
Well, and I was very green inside of a 24-track studio, I think, at that point. I don't know. I mean, we ended up mixing it at the other place, and I didn't really have much to do with the mixing. I remember there is a rough mix that I did, and like, you know, I just ran it basically. And I mean, I thought it was pretty good. It was maybe a little brash, like a lot of washiness in it. But I think it captured exactly what we were going for. I loved the guitar tones we got in there, and I still hear people say that that's their favorite sounding record of yours. So,
I mean, it's the great thing about it is it doesn't really sound like anything else.
yeah,
It doesn't.
I mean, for what we did in 5 days, it's fucking great. Whatever, the songs were great. You played it great. You know.
It's funny. I remember as we were mixing it, trying to get the room and the cymbals and stuff out of all of the other microphones, and it was just like, because that room is so reflective,
Right.
there was no way that you were going to get like the Rumors drum sound.
No,
You know,
you're not
it
going to
was
get
like-
the dry drum sound. No,
It was what
it was all about the big room sound. I'd be really interested to revisit those multi-tracks just to see what was there.
Explain double tracking vocals.
Well, and you would triple track.
I know. It's so
Well, double tracking or triple tracking is basically when you do a vocal track and then you sing again on a different track the exact same thing in the exact same way, and then you blend them together, and it makes it sound a little thicker, and it sort of smooths some rough edges. Some singers are great at it, and you're actually really good at it. And some singers can't do it at all because every time they change little inflections here and there or change their phrasing. Some singers don't need it at all because their voice is so interesting to listen to by itself that it kind of takes away from it. But your voice was always good doubled. I mean, fuck, the Beatles did it. They always
Did you have a
double-tracked.
record that had a little song like doubling vocals makes things
I don't
stronger?
know where, it was on a bendable thing out of a magazine. Doubling the vocals makes where was that?
I don't know.
I totally remember that.
That was in a church where everyone used to record. It's like Neil Young, Johnny Cash, and fucking everybody recorded there. So I'm gonna do that episode will be about that place and him in the new Nashville.
When are you starting recording for the record?
January. First we have to do all this shit. Then we go to Chicago. And then at some point we have to go to New Orleans. It's busy, busy, busy.
Chicago, are you going to record at Albini's place?
We are.
Nice. With Albini?
We are.
Nice.
With him.
Is Butch going to be involved the whole time, or is
He is.
so Butch and Albini together?
No. It's just Steve's studio.
Right.
We just want the studios. We don't want...
Oh.
Yeah.
So-
the idea is that we go to the studios and
Right.
we use them
All right.
to our advantage.
Are you going to inner ear?
Yes.
Really?
And it's funny that you mentioned that because I need to talk to you about that.
I've never been in that studio.
You've never been to Inner Ear?
No.
You ever met Don Z?
I've met Don Z once or twice. I never loved the records that came out of there, at least the early ones. I mean, it sounds good now, I think. But I mean, I think before he has the space that he has now, he was in his basement. So to me, all those early Discord records are just like, you know what I mean? Kind of papery and small sounding. But they're classics. You can't put them down.
What is it about every city seemed to have their one guy?
Right. Jack here.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Because the scenes were tight-knit and they would talk about who they wanted to go to. And I don't know. I don't think it's still like that, though. Now everybody's got their own studio
Yeah.
in their computer. It's in the computer.
Have you worked with Jack before?
Andino?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't worked together with him. I mean, I know him well. I mean, I've talked to him all the time, and we corresponded on the Nirvana stuff for the In Utero thing.
What kind of dude is Jack?
He's a good guy. He's funny. I like him. He's quite the character.
Is he like a scientific audiophile type?
Kind of, yeah. It seems like he's very meticulous when he's recording.
Which is funny considering all the bands he records sound like.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny, I was never that kind of an engineer. I'm always like, I'm more the musician kind of guy who knows how to twiddle the knobs or whatever. And I was never into the specifics of getting this. I'll use whatever there is there and try to get the best sound I can get. You know, I don't.
Well, after we did the thing at Robert Lang's, and then you started doing lots of 24-track stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then I bought this one, the 24-track here. So, I mean, I was pretty much 24-track after that.
Did you stop the music and do more production, or like?
Probably when I got a year later when I got agent and started getting major label stuff, I pretty much started doing that more full time. It's kind of sad. But it was a good idea. I mean, I really should have. I think I'm maybe better at helping other people make their music sound good. I always wish I had a producer when I played my own stuff, because I'm not a good producer for myself.
Yeah, how do you produce yourself?
I don't know. Some people can do it. But I was too many choices. I needed somebody to say, no, that's good. Don't do that. That's good.
What do you think the difference in Seattle, what's the biggest difference in Seattle now than when you first moved here?
I don't know. I don't really think in terms of that. I mean, things evolve, people evolve, places evolve. Yeah, there's probably more big buildings and there's more businesses here and Amazon's here or whatever, but I mean, there's still a lot of music here. There's a lot of beards. The beard rock is big.
Describe beard rock.
You know what beard rock is. Come on, they're everywhere. The Fleet Foxes and the My Morning Jackets.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a beard? I think I remember
Once.
watching you shave once, and you were shaving like all the way up to your eyeballs.
It's true.
So if you had a beard, it would just be
yeah.
your whole face.
It would be all white now, but I had a beard once. It was only about this long, but it was red.
Wow, really?
I was a redhead.
You're a redhead, that's
That's
right.
right.
This is not what I want to waste all of my hard drive
I'm
on.
sorry. I'm
Talk
sorry.
about Pearson's beard. One of the things that we're talking about in this series is each city and the regional music. Like, there has to be a reason that the music in New Orleans came from New Orleans, you know? And like, Nashville had country, New Orleans had jazz, Chicago had the blues. And I think there's specific reasons why all of those things happened. But Seattle, like, it seemed to have a specific aesthetic, you know? Why do you think that happened? Why do you think the music in Seattle happened in Seattle?
I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, to me it's because it's the weather and, I mean, I feel like I'm almost not a good person to talk to about it because I moved here in '91 when it was already going on, and I mean, I observed, but I don't know the deep roots of it. But I mean, people wear flannel because it was fucking cold, and the rock thing, I don't know. They had I think, you know, people see other bands play and they play off that. It's like I kind of like that what they're doing, so I'll kind of play the same thing. Or my brother lived here before I moved here. He like in the early '80s for like 6 months, and he brought back an album from fuck, now I'm gonna forget. The Wipeouts, is that right? No, that's not right. It's fucking
The Wipers?
no, not the Wipers. God damn it. Fuck, they were one of the big bands here. It's Bill Rieflin's first band. And I thought they were really cool. I don't know if you ever heard them. They had a great record that my brother brought back, and that was probably late 70s, early 80s, Seattle. And then I remember hearing, when I still lived in DC, hearing Soundgarden's first thing. I wanna fuck you. I'm thinking, wow, this is really lame. I actually didn't like Soundgarden until he started singing. And then they were cool. I remember when when Nirvana gets big and everybody says grunge and they put Soundgarden, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam all in the same category. And it's like, these could not be more different bands, you know. Soundgarden's a riff rock band. Nirvana, punk pop. Although not in the Blink 182 punk pop realm. Pearl Jam, total classic rock, kind of jam classic rock band. Alice in Chains, butt rock. How do you put those all together in one category? I never understood that. Makes no sense whatsoever. But, and press.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that, I mean, to me, you know, the funny thing about that time was that all of those things kind of blew up in the same 3 or 4 months of each other.
Right.
You know, like there was, I think maybe the Pearl Jam record came out first, and then the Nirvana record came out. Alice in Chains had a record out, and then the new Soundgarden record came out by like winter or something like that.
Right.
So within those 6 months, you had 4 huge records all coming from the same city. Like that doesn't,
I know, that
where
doesn't
else
how does
has that
happen?
happened?
I know.
So that's what's weird. Like why, I mean, I feel like it's more cultural than musical. That at some point the country that had decided Seattle was the most livable city in America in
Right.
the 80s finally saw something in the general aesthetic of the city. It was like, wow, they kind of have it good up there. It's almost like Portlandia.
Right.
You know, there's something, when you mention Portland, people go, oh, yeah, Portland. Like, I mean, I can't, because it sort of represents something specific.
Right.
And so I feel like that has something to do with why all of that music did what it did. I mean, I don't know either. Like, I moved here with you.
Exactly.
You
That's
know?
that's the thing.
Sure.
We were kind of outsiders in the scene, and you know, coming from DC, which was like all politics and punk rock, you know.
Well, I mean, it's funny because that's a good example. Like in Washington, D.C., it seemed like that environment or that atmosphere or whatever it was, the music from that city, that city sort of designed the music.
Right.
In a
Because
way.
of the politics around. I mean, it's weird. The politics of DC was so invasive. Like everything you heard or thought about, I mean, everything was politics, and that's why there was such a great punk rock movement that riled against the politics. And here, nobody really thinks about politics that much. It's like you don't go down to the mall and see the Capitol and, as Jello Biafra said, the great Klansman in the sky. You were at that Rock Against Reagan.
I was
right?
at that
Yeah.
Rock Against Reagan.
Free Skeeter, wasn't it? Did he get arrested that night?
He did, actually. No, I mean, I think that the reason why Seattle isn't like that is because it isn't there.
Right, exactly.
You know?
So what's
And-
here is rain and cold and dreariness, and so you go inside and you get drunk and you play loud rock and roll.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's got to be true, right?
I think it probably is. Okay, a couple more questions. Go-go. What do you know about go-go music?
Just that there's 3 bands, right? Chuck Brown and Soul Searchers, EU, and Trouble Funk. They were the big ones. And 2 of those bands played at my high school. And it's probably the most fun you'll ever have just watching a live show. And it never transferred well to recording. I mean, you never got the vibe. But the live show, you know, same groove, nonstop for 2 hours. And it's the best dance music ever. You saw some of the stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what is it? Never got anywhere else besides DC, really. I mean, Doing the Butt was kind of big, I guess, and Money. Those are the big hits. You need some money?
Let's Get Small was a good one, too.
Let's Get Small. Rota Toms.
Yeah. Drop the Bomb. That was a
Drop
big
the
one.
Bomb. That's good shit, man.
See, I bought a
I
fucking
always
mixtape from Big Tony.
I always thought that there's go-go should have been way bigger, but I felt like it never got recorded right. It never transferred into the recording realm as good as it is live. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe you just can't capture that. It's kind of like reggae, which is so much better live than recorded, I think.
I'm going to interview Pharrell Williams, and I'm going to try to get him to make a Trouble Funk record.
Oh, are they still around?
Oh, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
That would be great.
That would be killer.
Have him make a fucking hit record for Trouble Funk.
Yeah.
Shit.
That would be killer.
I know. Okay, let's move into the other room. Okay. I feel like you and I talk better together than separately.
Yeah.